So I have something to admit. I didn't grow up on Final Fantasy. I didn't and still haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII. But I did play Final Fantasy VII Remake as my first ever Final Fantasy game, and I thought it was incredible. I loved it so much. It was one of those games where when I beat it and the credits were rolling, I asked myself, is this my favorite game? Needless to say though, I have no connection to the original source material, though my first Final Fantasy experience was renting Advent Children from the video rental store. Yeah, remember those? But renting that as a kid and thinking it was the coolest movie I had ever seen, which I've watched recently, and I gotta say, it holds up. Quick heads up for minor spoilers in this video. I don't spoil the main story or like the big plot points, but I do talk about locations and some of the silly antics that the characters get into because, well, how can I not? Like I was saying, I might not have the appreciation that other fans who grew up playing Final Fantasy VII might have, but I was still super excited to play this game, and I ended up playing every single day in the month of March before taking a short break so I didn't feel too burned out when I rolled credits. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is far from a perfect game. It's bloated with nonsense, has some pacing issues, filled to the brim with minigames, some fun, others not, and game animations that just take way too long, like climbing anything, video calls, picking up stop signs, and an ending that leaves me emotionally confused. But what I got from it was this phenomenal spectacle of an adventure, yet silly and wacky with this goofy, comical group of characters that you just can't help but love to the very end. You are on a mission to save the world, but you really zigzag your way to get there, making it feel like you're just taking multiple vacations until you just happen to stumble upon where Sephiroth is. Which is funny, because they don't really know where they're going. It's like they leave Midgar, and they all ask, hey Cloud, where are we going? And Cloud just shrugs his shoulders and says, I don't know. In the direction of Sephiroth, duh. Okay, no, really. They're following the people in robes that have some sort of connection to Sephiroth, and Cloud believes they will eventually lead them to him. Which Sephiroth is such a cool and mysterious villain. It's like he's both in this game a lot, and yet hardly in it at all. I don't fully understand him yet, or his intentions, or why he's doing them, and every time he babbles on about something, I genuinely have no idea what he's talking about, but that almost makes him scarier in a way. Now the game is mostly about saving the world from Sephiroth, but it's also about big greedy corporations taking resources from the land and not caring about it, and seeing the effect it has across all the different regions. But who cares about that when you have the cool and sexy one-winged Sephiroth with his comically long and impractical katana? Anyways, your chasing of these robed dudes takes you doing all sorts of crazy shit like kickflipping a dolphin to get up onto a platform so that you can enter a city only to end up in a parade where they do swirly gun tricks, stumbling into a bar that only allows bald people, and taking a cruise ship and playing cards with a dog, and then spending time driving around a beach resort on segways, and definitely not spending 45 minutes in photo mode staring at Tifa and Aerith in bikinis. No, that'd be a crazy thing to do.
Cloud? Something wrong?
No, nothing.
Who am I kidding? Running around with Tifa and Aerith in bikinis is truly peak gaming. Also going to a casino with this amazing dance number to introduce you to it, only for you to gamble all of your vacation money away playing an absurd amount of minigames. I'm just kidding, by the way. The game doesn't actually have gambling, or at least I don't think it does. Also, going on dates, being in a virtual reality stage performance, driving a buggy with way too many wheels, boating, and so much more. I know it sounds like I'm spoiling things, but trust me, without any of the context, I'm really not. And now for the thing you'll spend most of the game doing, the combat feels good. It's just like Remake, where it's this real-time hybrid combat. You attack and counter to fill your ATB gauge, and then spend ATB to perform abilities and magic and whatnot. You can set up quick commands or enter the menus, which slows time, something that I personally did more than quick commands because it gives you a second to breathe and assess your situation. And your party's so much bigger this time around, and you can choose who you want in your combat party, and you can command your party members or just switch to them, which is something that I prefer doing. I like switching characters and playing as them to change things up. I know Aerith can be pretty broken if you build her right, but I just didn't care, and Tifa was in my party pretty much all of the time. I like Barret for range attacks and stuff, but honestly, I really liked having Yuffie in my party. She throws her massive shuriken that does continuous damage, and she can perform elemental damage from a distance with her ninjutsu, and then she has the ability to teleport to her shuriken to deal melee blows, or abilities like freaking Minato from Naruto. Also, just like Naruto, she can make a clone of herself, who mimics her attacks. I just love the versatility of Yuffie. She's really fun to play as. And when it comes to the combat, I just love how Cloud has a big-ass sword, Barret has a literal gun for an arm, Aerith has insane magical capabilities, Yuffie is a ninja with an oversized shuriken, Red is a talking canine with powers, and then you have Tifa. That's just like, I'm gonna punch and kick stuff, and I love it. Like I said earlier, if you played Remake, the combat is mostly the same, except this time around, you have synergy skills and synergy abilities, which are an absolute game changer, and they are a welcomed addition to the combat. Basically, every party member has a different synergy skill that they can use whenever with another character for either offensive or defensive purposes. The one I use the most is probably to have either Cloud or Barret launch Tifa into the air to take care of flying enemies. Along with synergy skills, you also have synergy abilities that, when you use certain ATB moves, it fills a synergy bar, and if you have enough synergy bars filled with two characters, they can team up and deal big damage and provide some sort of effect like casting magic at no cost, adding another ATB bar, etc. The synergies look so cool as well, and there's so many of them between all of the characters. I use Cloud and Tifa synergies a lot, but one of my favorites was with Tifa and Aerith, where Aerith summons this big, magical dome around an enemy, and Tifa bounces around it on the inside, jumping from wall to wall, delivering damage. It looks so cool. The synergies breathe so much of the characters' personalities into the combat, and they're an absolute joy to use. What makes combat so satisfying is that it's like this big combat puzzle that you have to solve. Find the enemy weaknesses, figure out which characters have the right moves to exploit the weakness, fighting to build up ATB, dodging and countering, all while managing your whole party and keeping their health up and whatnot, buffing and taking care of enemy debuffs. It can be overwhelming at times, but it's also a lot of fun. I do have the same issue with this game that I did with Remake, where the combat itself is incredible. It's the enemies that you fight that I absolutely hate. There's just so many annoying ones, like anything that flies sucks, one that goes underground, one that petrifies you, one that turns you into a frog. There's just so many annoying enemies. It's just, they suck. And for combat, you still have the materia system, which is like the main item in this game that you chase after. It's like the main ingredient for your character builds. You apply it to your weapon for certain extra damage, or apply it to your armor for certain buffs, or linking them together and finding out which material work best together, and etc, etc. I still feel like I'm way too stupid to fully understand the materia system and get the most out of it, but I found this plasma discharge build for Cloud, and it is my favorite thing. I can't imagine playing this game again without it. You can set it up to where basically every time Cloud filled an ATB gauge, it would set off this electrical explosion dealing damage to any enemy you're next to, and it even heals Cloud a little bit. Overall, the combat in Rebirth is brilliant, but where games like Final Fantasy XVI are fast, snappy, and responsive, Rebirth is kind of slow and sluggish and a bit messy at times, but not in a bad way. And there are no animation cancels, so if you button mash too much, you can really pay the price, and you have to be committed to the actions that you're doing. New to this game is the folio system, which is basically just a skill tree for each character. It's not the best system and can feel overwhelming at first, but it's really not that complicated, and it's pretty basic. And if you really want to dumb it down, just choose the paths that lead you to synergy skills and abilities, because that's how you unlock those. Now, while Final Fantasy VII Remake's world was mostly linear, Rebirth changes it up, splitting the world into regions, each one with open zones to explore, making it feel like an open world, and in many ways, it is. I was pretty worried about this at first. I didn't want an open world. I actually loved the linearity of Remake. It kept the game tight and focused and continuously drove the story forward. But it turns out, I shouldn't have been worried at all. They totally knew what they were doing. Or at least that's what I thought at first. The first region gives you this Breath of the Wild type moment where you step out of the city and are greeted with this wide grassland full of stuff to do. Wait a minute! Who put Ubisoft towers in my JRPG? That's right, there will be some icons on your map right away, like towers, and you go interact with those towers and reveal more points of interest on the map. I don't hate it, it just didn't feel necessary. Compared to Assassin's Creed, for example, a franchise that I think popularized this way of opening up a map. At least there you have to put in the effort to climb to the top of the thing that you're climbing, and when you do get to the top, you're usually rewarded with a good view of the land. Rebirth doesn't really give you that. Heck, some of the time you don't even have to climb to the top to interact with it. It's either halfway up the tower or even at the bottom. I don't think anything in this world is necessarily bad on its own, and for the first couple regions, I genuinely had a good time exploring every corner of the map, doing everything that there is to do in that region. But then you get to the third region, and then the fourth region, and the fifth, and then the sixth, and you realize you're just doing the same activities in every region over and over again. And it starts to feel dull and bloated and just full of stuff for the sake of having it. You realize that you're just doing a big checklist for each region, and by the end of the game, I was bored of it. There's also Chadley and his new girlfriend that is constantly interrupting you, holding you in place while he talks to you over this device, and it just slows things down. It is wild how often he calls you and how little he usually has to say. There's plenty of things to do in these regions, and they aren't pointless either. They all have some sort of reason and reward to doing them. Like finding shrines where you have to memorize a button sequence. It's a super boring task, but it helps you unlock summons easier. There's Moogle Roundup, sort of funny and enjoyable at first, but it gets old after a while. It helps you buy stuff in the Moogle shop, like character upgrades and whatnot. You'll come across these owls that will lead you to life springs, which are these little pockets of thriving nature that give you lore on the land, as well as unlocking more points of interest on your map. There's combat assignments and challenges that will unlock combat simulator stuff that will grant you XP, and each region has its own boss fight if you do all of the assignments. There's excavations where you ride your chocobo and it sifts out like buried treasure, and you get transmuter chips that helps you unlock crafting recipes. That's right, this game has crafting. There's also a fun little piano mini game, finding bus stops throughout the region, which are like fast travel points essentially, and unlocking chocobos. And it's a lot. If I remember correctly, the only activity that really changes throughout each region is the Proto-Relic quest line, giving you a new thing to do each time. Some of it fun, like playing for Condor, or others not as fun, like playing a new minigame called Gears and Gambits. I don't know, maybe you enjoyed it, but I just didn't care for this game at all. And then when you beat it, you unlock hard mode, and I was like, no thank you, I'm good. I do not need to play this again on hard mode. See ya. The Proto-Relic quest line is worth doing though. It takes you to this area of the map that you can only go to during this quest line, and then it ends in what is essentially this crazy boss rush ending in good rewards. And let's not forget the insane amount of minigames. Like seriously, they are constantly being introduced to you. The minigames are mostly fun and really help change up the pace, but it almost changes it too well. I'm sure if you just dabble in minigames is fine, but if you're like me, it was hard to keep myself from trying to get the best time or the highest score for the best reward, and doing that for every single minigame ate up a lot of my time. Like being a frog, playing this spinning wipeout game, flying through rings on a chocobo, this flying space shooter arcade game, boxing, motorcycle combat, pet soccer, and this Mario Kart-like chocobo races, which I did all of them. I seriously don't recommend that at all. The chocobo races are neat at first, but they get so boring after a while, and the last races that you unlock aren't necessarily harder, they're just a lot longer. It was one of the last things I did before beating the game, and I can't express enough how bored I was spending all of that time doing all of these chocobo races. And of course, that pretty much everyone agrees upon is the shining minigame of Rebirth, Queen's Blood. A genuinely fun and fairly simple card game that almost feels more like a board game. Your goal isn't necessarily to take out the enemy cards, although you can do that, but to take control of the playing field and getting more points than the opponent. It even comes with its own questline that is fun and super worth doing, all accompanied with jazzy music that slaps way too hard. In fact, all of the music in this game is incredible. It's so varied with different genres. I really like the Merc music. It was just kind of bopping. And then I especially really like the Gongaga music. Which for some reason, that track made me think of this track from Cowboy Bebop called Space Lion. I don't know, it just made me think of it. Really good track, by the way. Great OST all around.
Are all the employees here like you?
I saw some hate for the Gongaga region music online because it is kind of repetitive, but I don't care. I loved it. And fun fact, the region-specific music actually changes as you do stuff within the region, and it adds to the track. It's actually pretty cool. And let's not forget Salmon's theme. It is an absolute banger of a track. There is so much to do in this game that it almost screws with the pacing of it. And I know it's self-inflicted by the player to choose to do all the side activities before advancing the story, but how can you not doing when so many of them are worth doing? And when you're doing all of this stuff between the story beats, when you're supposed to be saving the world, it really just kind of makes the pacing feel weird. I don't even know if the pace is just bad, just a little unhurried, I guess. You really are on a quest to save the world. I know I've been saying that a lot, but to take all these detours and going on vacations, and some of the chapters are just too long, like playing as Kate Sith and throwing boxes. It's like, what are we doing? If I'm being honest, I don't know if I really enjoyed anything past like chapter 10. I think that's where the pacing got kind of weird. I enjoyed some moments like going on a date or fighting in a coliseum with an audience, and fighting in this weird multi-directional maze world thing where you fight a dragon and then defeat it with a sword fling into a flying axe kick. I know that was kind of spoilers, but I didn't show footage, and I just really like that part. People are kind of split on the ending. I'm not really sure how I feel about it myself. Not really a spoiler if you played the remake, but there's a lot of timeline, multiverse crap happening, and it can be kind of confusing knowing what's actually happening and what's not. I wrote here in my gaming notebook where I take all my notes for the games I'm playing, I wrote specifically, the final boss was kind of a clusterfuck of fights. And you know what? I still stand by that. I also wrote in my notebook at the end of the game, I have no idea what the fuck is going on with this ending. And I think I understand it a little bit more now. There's actually a really good video by GameSpot about the ending of the game and how you can differentiate the different timelines in the game. And I recommend watching that video if the ending had you feeling as stupid as I did. Man, I write a lot of unhinged stuff in my notebook. I wrote here, eat a dick, lactic acid. I don't even know what lactic acid is in the game anymore. I didn't write that down. I don't remember. The very first thing I wrote in my notebook for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was, went to town on it? I don't know what that means. Where's the context, Cody? Come on. I also wrote soccer fu a grenade. Don't remember what that is. I assume it means kicking a grenade or something. Let's see. I wrote King Zoo can suck my ass. To be fair, he can. Let's see what other goodies I got here. Whoever designed the solo Aerith fight is an evil, sick bastard. You know what? I remember that fight. Oh, I also just wrote the chicken side quest. If you know, you know. One of the best things about this game has to be the characters. I just love them all so much, and it really gives you this sense of family. Barrett steals the show every single time he's on screen. The performance and writing for him are all so excellent, and his personal story-related quest is heartbreaking. Aerith is always the positive one. Red gets some good story time of his own. Yuffie can be annoying with all her materia talk, but she's also just so weird and awkward. I just can't help but find her kind of charming. And then watching Tifa and Cloud grow closer. Speaking of, there is a relationship system where you can grow your bond with each party member by having them in your party, doing synergies with them, choosing the right dialogue choices with them, and doing side quests that involve them, which is why Tifa was in my party so much. I almost hate this system because I feel like the story so very much so needs Cloud and Tifa to build their relationship and for it to grow, and I think for a first time playthrough, it just shouldn't be left to chance whether or not you get that date. But that's just kind of my opinion because I really wanted that date to happen because I think it's what the story needed to happen. Does that make any sense? That's also why I had Tifa in my party so much and why I skipped some side quests until after I did the date. It probably sounds pathetic, but I think I would have been mad getting any other date. Although, the boys' night out probably would have been the second best choice, and I probably would have loved it. It would have added to the hilarity of this goofy ass game. As for Cloud, he kind of turns into this unlikable jackass at the end of the game, and I know he has his reasons, and he's like super messed up, and it makes sense, but still. Also, his Halo 3 Cortana glitch moments are super annoying, and they did not need to happen that often. And it makes me interested on where they go with his character for the next one and how he's going to act and whatnot. We'll see. At the end of the day, this is a video game-ass video game. It's silly, wacky, goofy, but also wholesome, heartwarming, sad, serious, and still tries to tell a joke every now and then. Full of unnecessary minigames and side activities reminiscent of older gaming generations. It's self-aware and it knows what it is. If it was shorter and a little bit smaller in scale, it would be almost everything that I want in a video game. I rolled credits at 110 hours, doing almost everything there is to do in a single playthrough before beating it. And I gotta admit, I was burnt out at the end. And that's not even including all of the stuff you unlock after beating the game. I think if you were to do just like main story stuff, it would probably take you around 40 hours to beat the game, which I think says a lot about the side content, comparing it to my 110 hour playthrough. It felt like it was dragging and the game was too big for no reason. I think I felt pretty low on it at the time. It just felt like so much in the game could have been cut out and not have been missed. But when I look back at it now, it was one of the most memorable video games I've ever played, giving me some of the greatest moments I don't think I'll ever forget. I think if I would have focused more on the story, dabbling in side content and side quests, and keeping my playthrough shorter, I might have felt differently about this game when I beat it. I really want to play this game again on New Game Plus and just focusing more on the story and only dabbling in mini games and side quests and then moving on. Definitely not hard mode though. That just seems too annoying for the sake of being annoying, and I'm frankly just not interested. I really don't know where this game is going, and that makes me excited for the next one. However, I will play the original Final Fantasy VII before the next game comes out. I promise you that. I just feel like I really need to experience the original game before completing this reimagined trilogy. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is magical, and if you have any interest in this game at all and haven't played it, I truly think it is worth the experience. Oh, and if you haven't played Remake, definitely play that one too. It's a much shorter game. I think even with side quests, it's only like around 40 hours long, so yeah, it's much shorter. I actually really want to replay Remake to see how I feel about it now after playing Rebirth, and if I still hold it to as high regards as I did when I originally beat it. But I got a lot of games to play, so I'll get to that sometime before the next game comes out, I hope. By the end of the journey, I was tired, and I was ready to be done with this game and move on. But at the same time, I never wanted this adventure with these characters to ever end. The end left me somewhat underwhelmed, but also it leaves so much open for what can happen next, and I can't wait to continue this adventure with this motley crew that I love so much. If you couldn't tell, I really couldn't decide how I wanted to tackle making this video. Every time I tried to write the script, I just kept putting it off because I'd think to myself, what do I even say about this game? I just think this game, while not perfect, is this moment in gaming history that's to be remembered. You know what, like, is that dramatic? I really wanted to make a short video for this one and not over-explain things and just talk about my experience with the game and how I feel about it, and clearly, didn't happen, so this is what we're stuck with. My stupid ramblings win again. Hopefully one day I can figure out how to make a short and good video. But that day is not today. Also, really quick, to anyone that watched my last video, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I've never had that much engagement on a video before, and I don't mean views, I mean like comments and conversations, and it was such a wonderful experience, and I definitely do not expect to get that again with this video, but I enjoyed it while it lasted. So if you haven't played Rebirth and this video made you want to try it, let me know, and if you did play it, let's talk in the comments about it. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you agree with me or disagree with me? I don't know, let's have a conversation. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. But who cares? But who cares about all that when you have the cool and sexy one-winged Sephiroth with his awkwardly comical... I think I might just take the first take. How bad could it be?